I have seen the gates of Oblivion, beyond which no waking eye may see. And now I've seen it in Unreal Engine 5. Welcome to Triple Click, where we bring the games to you. This week we talk about Oblivion Remastered, but also Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and also 100 Line Last Defense Academy. It's a video game grab bag with 3 games. Triple Click, triple games, rule of threes or something, yeah? I'm Maddy Myers.
I'm Jason Schreier.
And I'm Kirk Hamilton, and hello.
Hello.
Hello, my friends.
Hello, it's us again.
Kirk, how many times have you edited our saying our names today, and were any of those fake?
And have you thought about changing them again at any point?
I have thought about it. I haven't done it, but I've thought about just starting to sneak that in and then testing the most dedicated among our listeners to see if they can find it.
Yeah.
But no, there's nothing like that. Save your time
There's
out
no
there.
Secrets.
Nio and everyone else, don't worry.
We're not becoming
there are no secrets.
Some sort of blueprints-esque unlockable.
The spectrograph of each Triple Click episode does not contain secret information.
Triple Click is actually a homonym.
But what if you play them backwards? Yeah, what if you play the record version backwards? Because we are releasing Triple Click on vinyl. No, we're not. But if you ever wanted us to do that, I make absolutely no promises whatsoever. However, I will say that we do periodically do special things for those people who navigate to a little URL called MaximumFun.org/join and become members. They get access to our bonus feed. It's almost as high quality as listening to Triple Click on vinyl, backwards or forwards. Our most recent episode in the bonus feed was a Beans cast. We spilled the beans about Severance seasons 1 and 2, but we've got a big backlog in there of us spilling the beans on video games and movies and TV and our personal lives sometimes. So if that sounds interesting to you, or maybe you just want that warm fuzzy feeling of supporting a show that doesn't have ads, and also you're supporting Max Fun, which is a really cool network that we love being a part of, then why not? Why not go to MaximumFun.org/join and become a member? And just more why nots. If you are in the general vicinity of Portland, Oregon on Friday, July 11th, or if you think you could get yourself there just in time for this, then I would recommend that you go to the Triple Click live show that's happening that very night at the Alberta Rose Theatre. Doors at 7, show at 8. We're going to have a ticket link in the show notes. I think we've had that a couple weeks now, so please get your tickets. Then we'll know how many of you are going to come? And also then you'll know that you can go. So July 11th.
People are buying tickets, so get yours.
Yeah, get them. Go ahead and get them. Those tickets are getting snatched on up. All right. I have forgotten which of us is running this. Jason, is it you? Okay. Jason, what are we doing today?
Today we're talking about video games. We got a video game grab bag. We've got 3 games with colons in their titles that we're going to discuss.
That's right. That's the through line.
Today, we're mostly going to discuss The Elder Scrolls 4 : Oblivion and Clair Obscur : Expedition 33, but also a dash towards the end. I'll throw in a little dash of the 100 Line : Defense Academy. Let's start out with Oblivion. Last week, Oblivion Remastered was surprise released, was shadow dropped by Bethesda and Microsoft. It was remastered by a company called Virtuos that has studios all over the world, but I believe is primarily based in China. And it was very popular, reached 4 million players, Bethesda said, within its first few days on sale. Of course, when they say reach 4 million players, that also means Game Pass. But hey,
right.
We're still talking about millions of people
Players,
playing
yeah.
a game from 2006. We've all been playing or at least dabbling with it, so we thought we'd talk about it a little bit before we get into Clair Obscur. Kirk, I think you have the strongest opinions about Oblivion, so I'm curious to hear your take. What do you think of the remaster? What do you think of Oblivion in general? How's it hold up in 2025?
Strongest opinions makes it sound like I really feel passionately about Oblivion. I think I have the most.
You've definitely been among the three of us. You've been several times. You've called it mid and other kind of harsh words.
Well, so I've played the most Oblivion of the three of us, and I played a ton of that game in 2006, or I guess in 2007 for me when I got an Xbox 360. This is a story I've told many times when I kind of got back into video gaming after taking several years off. And I bought an Xbox 360, and I got 2 games for it. I got Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and I got The Elder Scrolls Oblivion. And it may not surprise you to know that I was smoking a lot of weed at the time. So this was sort of...
That's shocking.
These were both games. I was living in San Francisco. I was a jazz musician living in San Francisco.
Smoking the devil's grass.
That's right.
I know. Can you believe
it?
So I would occasionally smoke a jazz cigarette, and I would play some Xbox 360 open world games. And so, my experience of this game was very just like time to chill out and wander around Cyrodiil and just do repetitive stuff for a long time because it's a pretty chill game for that. And so, I liked it okay at the time, but I had already been in love with Morrowind. And even then, this was before I was writing any games criticism or really thinking about video games that way. But I was aware of all the ways that Oblivion kind of sanded off some of the interesting edges of Morrowind and just made it a little bit more generic fantasy. Like, I think that the Elder Scrolls setting is actually very interesting. I think Cyrodiil and all of the lore is more interesting than it appears at a first glance. And I think Morrowind, which is of course, for anyone who doesn't know, the game that preceded Oblivion and is set in the land of Morrowind, a much stranger looking game, this kind of swamp land. It's the land of the dark elves. There's huge mushrooms everywhere. People get around on these giant striding bugs. The story is just like odder. It just feels more particular, and it feels a little more in the lineage of a Planescape Torment or some of those early Infinity Engine RPGs that were just set in stranger and more specific worlds. Oblivion is much more post Lord of the Rings kind of big fantasy world with open bright fields and sunlight and an empire with a threat from a dark world where like a dark leader is going to lead these like hordes through these gates to destroy everything. It just feels much more post Lord of the Rings and a little less remarkable, at least in the big picture, even though some of that specific stuff is still there. So playing it this time, that struck me all over again. And I find the world and its approach to the Elder Scrolls to just be a little bit less interesting. I'm curious what the two of you thought, though, since you're a little less familiar with this game.
My only thought is I played through the intro and was like, I wish I was playing Avowed right now. It definitely shows its age.
It's really interesting, right? Yeah, that it is out the same year as Avowed, because they are very similar.
Well, and Avowed has really mastered that first person combat and made it so much more tactile and so much more entertaining and gives you so many more options. And jumping into Oblivion, it's interesting to see a game that looks like it's from 2025 but feels like it's from 2006. And I'm sure for nostalgia's sake it's cool. I'm sure
yes.
a lot of people are just like kind of going back to the days when the Xbox 360 had just come out and they were in high school or college or whatever, and have all sorts of fond memories of that time. But for me, who doesn't have a lot of nostalgia with that game, it was just not a good experience. Maddy, what about you?
Yeah, for me, it was also a very similarly tough hang. I did not play Oblivion the first time around. Skyrim was my first one, which I think is a pretty typical experience with Elder Scrolls. And even Skyrim, the combat feels a little bad. It's a little bit unusual. It's maybe not the strongest part of the game, but Avowed is like another step up where it's like, okay, there's no lock on in Avowed. I think we talked about that a little bit on the episode, but something interesting about that game, like you're still kind of, strafing around and just trying to get your sword to hit the guy at the right angle or whatever. If you're me, you're trying to get your sword or axe to hit the guy, because obviously that's the kind of character class I'm playing as. But in Oblivion, it's like as though I've taken 40 steps back in terms of how confident I am that my sword is ever really going to hit the guy. That feeling is not great in my estimation. But that sensation of like, oh, there's something more to this world. You talk to all these characters. There's like kind of fun conversations to be had and goofy conversations to be had. I enjoy that stuff. The facial expressions are silly. Like the 2006 of it all. I still have some nostalgia for 2006 era video games in general, even if not this one specifically. So I still felt that. But yeah, I also was in the midst of playing Clair Obscur, which I know we're going to talk about in a second. And it's totally different, but it's so fun that I had my moments of being
Much
like,
cooler game.
what am I doing?
Clair Obscur is a good comparison point along with Avowed, just in terms of world building and just interestingness of the world, just visual interestingness.
Yeah.
Because Clair Obscur, of course, incredibly interesting environments, and Avowed as well. Avowed kind of felt like Morrowind. I think I mentioned this back when we talked about that game. That world, this weird fungal kind of magical avatar world or whatever, definitely felt kind of particular and unusual in a way that Cyrodiil and Oblivion doesn't. And I agree I have a lot of nostalgia for this game, so just playing it, hearing the music, whatever, hearing some of the lines of dialogue, Sir Patrick Stewart at the beginning.
He's there.
It has an all-timer credit sequence. That opening line when he says those portentous lines of dialogue to set things off.
This is the 27th of last seed, the year of Akatosh 433. These are the closing days of the third era and the final hours of my life.
And then like Bethesda Games presents and the da-da-dun, da-da-dun, da-da-dun starts playing.
It's very epic with a capital E.
It's very epic, and it feels very Lord of the Rings. It feels very, it feels like the beginning of the Lord of the Rings. And they've got Patrick Stewart. Sean Bean is in this game as well. He plays a major character.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings zone. Sean Bean. He's in there. They got him.
So it's that kind of mid-2000s stunt casting thing where video games were just starting to kind of try to say, hey, look, we're for real. We're as big of a deal as, the Lord of the Rings. We're just like the movies. And then, of course, you play this game, and there's these very silly sequences where Sean Bean will give a rousing speech, and it's very like Helm's Deep or something. You're waiting for this huge battle to happen, but then it's like 6 good guys and 6 bad guys, and they just kind of run at each other and just start like
just kind of collide,
swinging their swords around. Right, and you run into the fight and you're accidentally killing your own guys because it's so hard to aim at enemies, and like it's all very nostalgic, and I think that's the main appeal for it. And I'll say, I'm playing on PC, and I'm very disappointed with the performance of this port. It's very hard for me to get consistent performance on my PC, and I gather that's been a real problem across the board. And it's too bad because visually this remaster is incredible. When you just look at screenshots, it's so cool what they've managed to do. It's just a real shame that it doesn't run better, because I do like the idea of taking these older games and making them look as nice as this one does.
So, yeah, I'm sure nostalgia was a big point in making it popular, but also the lack of Elder Scrolls games. There hasn't been a new single-player Elder Scrolls game since 2011, so that's a big factor as well. One thing I'll say, just on the Skyrim comparison, so Skyrim was my first, real Elder Scrolls title. I had played a tiny bit, mostly watched my roommate in college play Oblivion, but Skyrim was my first main one, and I'm struck by the differences in how each of those games start. They both kind of give you this guided tutorial for your first 30 minutes or so. But then afterwards, Oblivion just kind of sends you to go talk to a dude who says some ominous things and then sends you to go talk to another dude. Whereas Skyrim kind of signposts you. It doesn't explicitly tell you have to do this, but it signposts you to go on this treasure hunt where you get to go through a dungeon and you get a treasure and you bring it back, and then you have these dragon encounters and you get a sense of what the overall story would be, and it feels a lot more substantial than Oblivion does during those kind of opening moments. And I think it's much easier to get kind of your hooks into Skyrim than Oblivion. I also think the Nordic setting just does wonders for Skyrim. It's a more specific setting. It is, yeah. And Oblivion, does Oblivion have, just because I haven't, Kirk, I'm curious, just because I haven't explored the entire world or anything, is it really just all just kind of generic fantasy land? Is there any sort of theme to its world other than the Oblivion gates or whatever?
There are different towns, if memory serves anyways, that have kind of their own identity. But no, it's a little more of a just central, because it's set in Cyrodiil, which is kind of the central part of the continent. And it's just a little bit less interesting from in terms of climate and landscape. Though there are some side quests, like the Dark Brotherhood side quest, as usual in these games, is terrific. I think the Thieves Guild one is really cool. I remember there being some really great side quests. And the overall story actually isn't bad either once it gets cooking, if my memory of it holds up, which I think it kind of does. I was reading a little bit about it to remember it. And there's some cool stuff in there, even though there's a lot of repetitive dungeons and that kind of copy paste thing. And what you're saying about how it kind of how Skyrim guides you along in the story and sort of gives you a little bit more scaffolding when you get started and has that early dragon attack and has the dragons overall. Like there's this feeling that there's just a little bit more to it that when you're moving through it. That is a change that this series underwent. And actually Morrowind is even less directed than Oblivion. And that's not always a bad thing, even though I think it is a real strength of Skyrim's and it's something that sets the game apart. One thing that I really liked about Morrowind was that it felt very reactive in a subtle way that was almost mysterious. I remember playing that game for long periods of time and not really knowing what I was supposed to be doing. And then I just sort of would read my diary, my journal, and it would give me some indication of something in some town. And I'd go talk to a guy. And then that night I'd have a dream. And a spirit would appear to me out of nowhere and be like, say some mysterious shit to me. And I would wake up out of the dream and be like, oh man, that was so cool. I'm moving along the quest and I didn't even realize it. And so that was kind of cool. It was just, it's a little less, it doesn't work for as many people. It's a little harder to get into.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the Skyrim scaffolding, it wasn't necessarily as important to me to have direction as much as it was to kind of signal to me, oh, there is cool things here. This world does contain multitudes, as opposed to Oblivion, where like I started walking, I talked to some dude, he said some generic stuff. I found some like landmark that had some generic fantasy name and I went into it and it was just kind of a tomb with a bunch of skeletons in it. And there wasn't really anything grabbing me that was like, okay, here's an interesting thing, as opposed to you get to that first town, you have a few interesting quests immediately pop up. You have that kind of the person who sends you to go get the treasure from the burrows or whatever it's called, the barrows.
Yeah, the tomb.
So it just gives you more to grab onto in a way that Oblivion doesn't necessarily have to be like guiding you to a story as much as it is a promise of something interesting there, which I didn't really get from Oblivion. But really, it's just the gameplay and the combat that just made me feel like, God, this is a game from 2006. I don't want to be playing this right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about Clair Obscur Expedition.
Perfect.
30.
Perfect. 10 out of 10.
This is going to be a fun episode for Jason's French pronunciation.
Murday.
let's
Murday,
do it.
my friends. Murday.
Here we go. Goose
Isn't
Dave.
that the main character is Matthew Murday, isn't he? So Clair Obscur Expedition 33 just came out. It is a new FRPG, France RPG with turn-based combat, very heavily inspired by a lot of old school Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy X in particular. Very French, very stylish, has also sold a lot of copies, been very popular. I believe the developer said they have sold 1 million copies, which is pretty impressive for a game that I think is not like one of the heavy hitters. Has also been reviewed exceptionally well. One of the best reviewed games of the year alongside Blueprints. Maddy, you played the most. What do you think of Clair Obscur Expedition 33 beyond what you said last week in your One More Thing?
I'm so into it. And the more I play, the more into it I am. I'm really into the story. I'm in Act 2 now, so if people are playing it, they'll know which plot points I've seen transpire, and I loved them all. I thought they were amazing. I hope that you two don't get spoiled on anything, because this is a really story-heavy game, and I'm enjoying that. I feel like it's been a while since I played a really story-heavy RPG. I feel like I compared it a little bit to Metaphoria Fantasio before, and I think that still holds true in the sense that I still think it has a really original world, but I also am loving how just not awkward all the conversations feel. I talked about that as well, but I think that's still the case. I really love the voice acting and performances in the game, and I'm sure we're going to talk about the combat, but the more I play, the more abilities I unlock and the more I become just a full combat mastermind of Clair Obscur. Like, I remember the first few hours I was like, I don't know if I have any idea what I'm doing at all. And I was like talking to our guides team members a lot and being like, how am I supposed to do this? And then at a certain point it clicked, and now I'm like an unstoppable powerhouse every time I enter battle, and I'm like, oh, I get to be creative. I get to like decide which abilities I'm going to stack on top of each other, or maybe I'm going to switch out my party members and use somebody else this time, and that's been really just fun all around. So yeah, glowing recommendation from me. I am enjoying it top to bottom. Good video game.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was struck by. I'm still pretty early. I just beat the boss with the flowers. Have you guys beaten that one, the boss? So still pretty early in Act 1 or whatever it is. I was struck by one early scene where Loon and Gustav are chatting and they're kind of speaking over each other in a way that feels very naturalistic.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
I know what
was
you're
struck by
talking
this too. I
about.
have this in my notes.
I loved that scene. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
It's interesting
That
that we
happens a
all
lot.
noticed it.
Yeah, because they're arguing over whether to proceed with the mission or procedure, or to break off and follow this note and try to find their buddy Mael. And the way they argue with each other feels like a way that people would argue, where they're kind of stepping over each other. It feels like the way a podcast would sound if Kirk didn't edit it.
But it's great. That's what's great about it.
I get the sense that they performed these scenes in the room together. It very much feels that way. I don't know if they did, but yeah, that was the first time I noticed it, but it happens a lot throughout. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I really like it too. I'm the combat. I think I'm still kind of waiting for it to really grip me, because I'm not really enjoying just kind of the random like filler encounters. They feel a little bit easy for me, but I'm really impressed by the story and the style of it all, and the performances especially. I find really interesting. I appreciate that this game is very focused and doesn't seem to be throwing a bazillion different mechanics at you, and it's just kind of saying, okay, here is how things work. It's also, and I don't like this about it, it's a very busy game. Everything from the UI to the visual effects to on like in the like areas you're exploring, and also in combat, it just feels like it's throwing a lot at you, and that can be overwhelming in a way that I don't really love. But there's a lot about it I do like. I mean, I really like the Persona style UI for the combat and the snappiness of it. It feels very quick when you do things, so combat never really wears out its welcome. I like the Paper Mario RPG stuff. I like that there's chests that you have to like throw your Leviathan axe at 3 different things to unlock.
Yeah.
That's a fun little. That's a mechanic where I always wonder why no one else took that from God of War. So it's fun that they took that one. There's a lot to like about it. I'm not as kind of glowing on it just yet, but I'm certainly going to play more and see if I really fall in love with it. Because I'm sure there's I believe that all these critics adored it. So I'm curious to see like where the story goes from here. But yeah, I like it. Kirk, what about you?
Yeah, I'm digging it as well. I think the story does make a very strong first impression. And I know, Maddy, you summarized the narrative setup last week, but maybe let me take a crack at it now to see.
Yeah, see if you can explain what's going on in Clair Obscur.
It's cool, and I really liked your essay at Polygon about how this game resists exposition dump and just sort of drops you into the thick of things. I saw someone describe it as kind of like walking into a movie 30 minutes in and then just having to figure out what's going on, which I've done from time to time, even on accident. Started a TV show in the middle of the season without realizing it, and I'm like, wow, okay, I guess we're just going. But then you do typically figure it out if it's a well-written show, and this, I think, is a well-written game. The premise is basically that it appears to be France, there was some sort of a massive supernatural catastrophe that stripped reality apart. In that way, it actually feels a little bit like Death Stranding. It has that same kind of mournful, confused energy where everyone is pretty doomed and the world has just been ripped apart and things are super crazy, but everyone's just trying to survive.
Let me just interject for a second. It's Final Fantasy X, like through and through. That's the game that this is taking, the idea of like going on a pilgrimage to defeat this doom causing thing and everyone's melancholy. It's all Final Fantasy X.
Okay, but it's also Death Stranding. That is true. One, it's also Final Fantasy X's combat. I think it has a lot in common with FF10 in terms of the combat design and like the turn structure and the way that initiative works.
Order thing.
Yeah, the sort of the way that initiative works and the way that speed and that you're kind of managing the turn economy feels to me at least like my memories of FF10. But yeah, it has that Death Stranding feeling. I think in terms of vibes, it also feels a lot like Lies of P to me for a number of reasons. Partly it's that whole Belle Epoque France like thing where it's sort of steampunk and it sort of looks like, you know, the town outside of Montmartre. And also just, I don't know, it's like it's kind of derivative in the same ways as Lies of P, where you're seeing stuff from other games, but it's being repurposed. The music in this game is exceptionally beautiful right from the start. And actually reminds me a little bit of several Japanese games where there will be like a featured vocal soloist. There's a singer who is like the primary, the voice of the game, and she'll sing these songs, and the songs that she sings are like Clair Obscur.
Yeah, she's like singing the words
game.
Clair Obscur, which I was I this might be a little corny for me. Like when I was first playing it, I was playing it like with an advanced code. I was talking to no one else, and I was like, I don't know what I think about a woman singing Clair Obscur. But then it captured me.
Well, and it's a rich tradition because when you start a Persona game, there is a person singing or rapping about the Shadow World or about like what we're going to do in this Persona game.
What else are you going to write a song about if you live in Lumiere? This is what's going on.
Right. So, and I think she has a beautiful voice, and I think that the music in general is like really gorgeous and very atmospheric and lush in a similar way to Lies of P, and to just that it has a very kind of similar vibe. Bing! Kirk here as I'm editing the show. I just wanted to add a little bit more about the music since I didn't have everybody's names ready when we were recording, and I wanted to give proper credit. The score for Clair Obscur was composed by Lorien Testard, and there's a cool little promotional mini documentary they put out where you can watch him and all these lovely musicians recording the whole thing. The featured vocalist is Alice Duport-Percier. Hopefully I haven't mangled either of their names. She is wonderful. Also, there's really great battle music in this game. A track will begin one way. It'll sound, another nice, groovy, atmospheric track. But then they'll add some new element, like a synthesizer. And then suddenly I'm just not fighting because I'm sitting back and listening to the music. So yeah, it's really special stuff. Shout outs to Testard and all the musicians who worked on it. A wonderful soundtrack. Okay, back to the show. Bing! So anyways, in this world, there's been this catastrophe, and now the Paintress, who is this massive kind of titan who sits on the horizon, will throw a number up onto this pillar behind her every year, and everyone who is that age or older gets basically Thanos snapped out of reality. And it's been 70 years since this started, which is communicated pretty early on in the game. So society has learned to accept that this just happens and that they're kind of dwindling in number. And so I described it last week when you were talking about it, Maddy, as a reverse Children of Men. And it has that same kind of haunted energy as Children of Men. And they do so much in that early, that sort of beginning sequence, which is just during the gommage, they call it, which is the day when a new group of people gets snapped away. They do so much good world building and character work there. The performances are really good. The writing is very understated and subtle. For such a huge, big idea, huge concept, it's very plain spoken about it, and it doesn't beat you over the head with any one thing. And it's just so sad. It's such a sad and haunted game, and I really like that about it too. So that's one of my big takes, is just that the narrative has really grabbed me. I think the narrative setup is just very strong.
I agree. And I think something else really strong about it is just the emphasis on the expeditions failing. Like every time you're going somewhere, you're picking up these kind of notes or these flags throughout the game. Those are like your checkpoints, and they're all numbers of past expeditions that
and you're walking
failed,
past the bodies.
And you're walking past the bodies
like,
of people who are like trying to essentially kill God, the paintress in this case, and they fail. But the motto that they all have all the time is just "we continue," and they're all focused on this idea of the expedition and the mission, because part of that is passing on what they learn to the next group after them about whatever the enemies are that they're going to face. And like, I don't know, there's something just that really works about that. It's like you're a roguelike character, but you're like one of the runs that's going to die. And I never really thought about that in a video game format before, but it's sad, but in a way that feels very recognizable and cool and unexplored.
And very human. I think it's true to the scientific method and to the fact of being a human being is that you try to make the world better and learn more about it so that you can leave something to the next generation. I agree. It's a really wonderful note in the narrative.
I saw some reviewers talking about how this game kind of pivots on its themes a little bit, like towards the end, in a way that disappointed some people. So I'm very curious to see what happens there.
They're being true to their inspirations, if that's the case.
Yeah, I was thinking about a lot of JRPGs that kind of go off the rails towards the end of things.
I mean, it's hard to like kill God at the end of a game and have that be good and satisfying. Like, I don't know how you land that plane. It's a toughie, but I am really enjoying the ride, and I've already prepared emotionally. I'm like, this probably isn't all going to make sense, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not having every question answered.
So the Liza P comparison is a strong one, I think. Both very, very heavy Euro post-apocalyptic vibes, but I also see a lot of souls in here, especially in the monster design. The monsters feel straight out of Elden Ring or Dark Souls or Demon Souls. Very creative looking monsters that don't you're not fighting goblins and mechs and just kind of traditional fantasy stuff here. You're fighting a lot of weird, totally unrecognizable shapes and creatures, and some of them are a little just kind of, I don't know, boring looking, but I appreciate the attempt to do something that is not generic fantasy.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, to talk a little bit about my take on the combat, I'm having a great time with it, and for a little while was feeling a little similar to what you expressed, Jason, where it just hadn't quite clicked, just because I'm early enough in a game that is clearly built around a fairly complex upgrade system and like synergy system. You assign these upgrades to your characters, you win enough battles and the upgrades become permanent, then you spend a certain amount of points to keep permanent upgrades on different characters, and eventually you're kind of kitting out each character with their own strengths and weaknesses so that they can synergize together. Also, every character has their own completely unique combat style. Maëlle is a good example. She's the third character in the party. She's the first character you kind of get after Luna and Gustav kind of team up at the beginning. And she just fights completely differently than everybody else. She's a kind of duelist. She's like a fencer. That's her deal. And so all of her attacks revolve around stance shifting. So you'll do a fire attack that shifts you into defensive stance for the next turn, which means that in the next turn you take a lot less damage, but you do less damage. Or if somebody else can light an enemy on fire, Maëlle can then do an attack that switches her into virtuose stance, which does way more damage and is kind of the key to her whole character. So it's already got me kind of thinking 2 steps ahead and trying to synergize, Gustav and Lune's moves with hers, because if they can set someone on fire, she can get into virtuous stance and sometimes just one shot a boss because she does so much damage. And that's just the tip of the iceberg from what I've gathered, and even from screenshots I've seen where there's a jillion of these skills, that you're kind of picking and choosing between. So at first I was kind of like, okay, this is a lot. Clearly it's going to develop as I go. I don't know. And then I was finding, like you had mentioned last week, Maddy, the parry window, because you have to parry attacks as a real-time element to these fights. I was finding that really tight and a little bit inconsistent. One tip I will mention that I saw online was if you're playing on PC, to turn your VSync on and set the frame rate to 60. And that may make it a little bit easier to hit some of the dodges and parries than if you're on an unlocked frame rate. I kind of found that I'm not totally sure. It might just be like in my head that it's easier.
You know what? The placebo effect is real. If you think it's helping,
maybe,
it's helping
maybe
you.
it'll just make you play better. But anyhow, so I was kind of finding all of that. And then I just had a boss fight last night where I kind of went through and really figured out how that whole system works of the Lumiere, whatever they're called,
Luminous.
the things that you assigned. Thank you to the
It's
and
dumb.
the Pictos.
It's not a real word. None of these are real words.
Right. And the UI, like you said, Jason, it's very busy and very
I
complicated.
agree.
So
Those are some of my complaints.
I just
too.
sat down and figured it out.
Lumina, Pictos, Murday, not real words.
Murday.
France, not a real place.
No.
Yeah, it's so well developed in this game.
Tour Eiffel.
Yeah, like how did they come up with that?
So once I figured that all out and kind of assigned it, I went into this boss fight really feeling like, okay, I've got a couple of strategies I'm going to really try to employ, most of it built around Mael, and it was super fun. I had a great time. It was the first time I felt like, oh, I'm like building strategies, and I was kind of kicking ass and ready for all of the boss's attacks, and I was getting better at dodging and like jumping over their attacks and stuff. So it really got fun, and I can imagine how cool it gets once you have a full party and you've really kitted everyone out.
Yeah, I'm
That's where I'm
excited
at.
for that to develop. I find the upgrade and skill system very tedious. Like every time I get to one of those flags, I have to go and
I
just
agree.
randomly select
I
some
don't
stacks
enjoy
and
that.
skills.
You
and,
level up really fast.
You do.
yeah, and so every time you get to one of those, you have to go through
Yep.
the whole thing. And then when you're in camp, you have a bazillion different things you have to kind of juggle and upgrade and think about as you go. But yes, I'm looking forward to doing more and kind of getting more to that point. But yes, Kirk, I also was doing the synergizing you were talking about. That's actually why I found it a little bit too easy to start with, is because I was just using Mael's virtuous stance to just destroy everything, including the optional thing. Like my characters are like, oh, stay away from that thing. And then I just went and just destroyed it because I just could follow that kind of, did you guys fight that one optional boss that like eats your characters? That was
I have.
an
Although
interesting
last
one.
night I fought an optional boss that I eventually was like, I'm not sure I can beat this optional boss. So
That's fun.
we'll see if eventually, Jason, you think the game is hard.
I've hit a couple optional bosses that just one shot anyone they hit, and I'm kind of like, I'll come back to this.
This
like, I
one
don't really
just
have time.
had a combination that I
Well,
didn't.
so I did that. That was the first one. That actually, okay. So I tried the first optional boss. One shots your characters. The first one you can find, and that I found to be a very helpful tutorial. Almost in like it was training me to parry and dodge. And
Yeah.
once I got the hang of it, I was like, oh, okay, now I'm getting a feel for how this all is functioning. And that's not to say I'm some master where I'm like parrying every single attack, but like beating that boss, I think got me a lot more prepared for future fights in a way that I found them to be much easier than I would have if I hadn't taken on that first boss.
yeah.
You know, speaking of the upgrades, like the character leveling up, you do level up very quickly in this game, and you always have more points to allocate. And the tip that Polygon gave, anyways, is that you basically want to kind of evenly distribute your points.
That's pretty much
even
what
though
I've been
each
doing, too.
character
Yeah.
sort of has, like Gustav, luck is a little better, and his weapons sort of scale with that. But as a result, I almost wonder if you need to be allocating points for your characters, like if maybe they could just auto level up like in some Japanese RPGs, and you could just not have to worry about that specific part of your character build. But then again, I don't know, maybe there's some min-maxing strat down the road where it's helpful to be able to do
Maybe.
that.
It does kind of feel like Clair Obscur 2 is going to sort out some of these kinks. I haven't even reached the end of the
Yeah.
game. I don't even know if the story makes it possible for there to be another game. But like some of this stuff,
Expedition
I'm
32,
like,
I guess.
Well, if you all
Yeah.
lose at the end, then you have to try again.
great
in
point. And
Expedition
then we'll be in
32.
Expedition 32, like Kirk just said. But I do feel like some of this is like, well, it's their debut game. The studio is like clearly just working on something that's really complicated. So I'm willing to give them some grace for that. But I agree.
Sure.
It's so annoying to deal with Pictos. And there have been times where I've unlocked a new ability and been like, great, this looks like a great new ability. But what am I going to get rid of? Like, so that I can fit this, because you can only really have these 6 things lined up. And I don't know, it just becomes increasingly tedious. Like even swapping out the abilities is kind of tedious, but it's worth it because it's fun when you're actually using the abilities in battle.
For sure.
Yeah, that idea, the idea is a strong one. It actually comes from Final Fantasy IX, that idea of like you use a skill enough times or in enough battles and then you learn it permanently after that, and then you can equip something else, and it's like connected to your item. In Final Fantasy IX, it was connected to your gear, and it made for some interesting strategy or some interesting kind of tactics you had to do, because you had to think like, oh, am I going to upgrade this character to a stronger piece of armor or keep the old piece of armor until I learn that skill and then upgrade later. And I have yet to see exactly how that kind of interesting decision making is going to play out with the Pictos.
It's very generous in this game, because when you unlock one of those abilities, it goes across all characters, which is nice because you don't then have to think, oh, now I have to go equip this onto this guy so that he can then unlock the same ability that I just unlocked on the first character. So it reduces micromanagement and is probably good overall, given how many of these abilities there seems to be. But that is kind of a difference that's probably more generous and a good thing overall.
Yeah,
Cool.
and also like weapons have their own entire upgrade system that is separate from all of that, and it's just like another thing to think about.
It's very busy. I would describe this as a very busy game in every possible way, in UI and these kind
visually busy. I agree with you on that. There are times in combat where I'm doing QTEs and I'm like, there's too much on screen. I can't see when I'm supposed to press X.
Yeah, it's a little much. I will say, when I said before that I appreciate that this doesn't have too many systems, I guess that's not quite as much of, like, it does have too many kind of stat building, level building systems, but I'm glad it doesn't also have a crafting system and a skill. Well, I guess it does have a skill tree, but like other kind of generic open world like checklisty things that a lot of games do. It feels a lot more.
It's fairly focused. It seems fairly focused.
And it's also not really an open
linear
world. It's linear.
It's a lot more linear.
Which helps.
Although there are side quests, so you have to kind of fast travel back like that.
There's like backtracking.
You do have to do some backtracking. All right, I think the three of us will probably go off and play more and talk about this more soon once we've had a chance to really kind of spend a lot more time with it, or at least when Kirk and I have caught up to you, Maddy, and gotten past the first act and stuff. So let's put a pin in that. Before we go and take a break and do one more thing, I got to tell you guys a little bit more about the 100-line Defense Academy.
Hearing good things.
So, man, okay. So last week I talked about this as my one more thing, and I told you guys the premise of this game, which is basically the creators of Zero Escape and the creators of Danganronpa got together and made this company, and this is their kind of return to form after some whiffs that they released earlier. And I was talking about how I was pretty far into the game, and I had heard that there was a flowchart of some sort, the way that like 999 and Virtue's Last Reward have, but I hadn't yet seen it. Okay. Since then, I have seen the flowchart. You guys, this game is insane. I've never seen anything like it. Okay, so the structure of this game, and I guess spoiler warning but you should probably know this if you're going into this. The structure of this game is that you play through these first 100 days of defending this academy through battles and hanging out with your characters, getting to know everybody, and some twists and turns, sci-fi twists, all sorts of crazy stuff happens. And that took me about 20-ish hours. And I got through the 100 days. I was like, okay, cool. This is the end of the story. Sure. It is not, my friends, the end of the story. It is essentially the end of the prologue, or at least the end of the first story. So you finish that.
The real blueprint starts now.
You finish that. It is very similar in that you finish that and you roll the credits, and then it's like, now you'll have the opportunity to go back through time and play through these 100 days again. Except this time, and you're kind of, the game calls it like your second playthrough or whatever, but it's more than that, because in your second playthrough, you get the opportunity to make decisions. The first decision I won't say because it's very spoilery, but I'll skip ahead a little bit. That first decision has branches, and then let's say you pick one of those branches, then you might be faced with the decision, okay, you are being threatened. You have to leave the academy or stay in the academy, and you can choose what to do. And it'll give you this prompt, and it'll be like, decision time, and you get to choose, and then that'll start a branch. And if you leave the academy, you can play for hours and hours and hours, making even more decisions as you go, each of which has their own branch. If you stay in the academy, you can play for hours and hours, each of which has its own branches along the way. And so... Cool. Some of these have full-on routes that they're called that like change the entire nature of the game. So like if you make a couple of pivotal early decisions, you might wind up in the mystery route where like there's a big mystery that happens to the characters and they have to figure out what the deal is. Or the killing game route where you are subjected by some torturer into a killing game and you have to figure out how to proceed. Or the romance route or the comedy route, or like there are all these themed routes. And then then each of those routes also has like a dozen endings attached to them as you go and make these decisions. And then when you make a decision and you see an ending, you can just go right back to any decision. You are seeing this flowchart unfold. So you can go back to any decision at any point and see how the other way would go. And from what I've gathered, there's like a true ending to all of this that you can only do once you've like unlocked certain parts of the story. And so you're incentivized to see all 100 endings to this game. 100 endings to this game.
This really is like they played Nier Automata and were like, hold my beer.
Yeah, it's like they took a Danganronpa game and then
they
like
played their own
we're
games.
like let's throw in 10 of these. Let's throw 10 of these games all into one. It is crazy, man, and it's all really, really good. There's a little bit of repetition involved, and it's a little tough to like keep track of like where each character is or like what the current status is, but there's some helpful tools that you can use there. You can jump back to any scene and watch it again if you want. There's a conversation log that helps a lot. And also, this is pivotal, it lets you skip battles once you've already beaten them. So like on one route, you might encounter like day 7 battle, and then you might encounter the day 7 battle on a second route. You can skip it if you've already done it. So that's also very, very helpful. And I'm so into this game that I plan on like beating the entire thing and getting all 100 endings because it's really, really cool, and I'm really hooked. The characters all pretty much all of them start out awful, like Danganronpa style, and then grow on you as the game goes on. Of course, there are a couple that are always cool, but so a lot of them start out awful and then just like gradually grow on you. The more you play, the more you learn about them. It's really good, you guys. I'm really into it, but like people should know how much of a time commitment it is to jump into this game. Like, I don't know. I'll report back when I've actually beaten the entire thing, how many endings that I've seen. But man, it's wild. It's wild. And I will say, so I beat one of the potential routes. So one of the second playthrough's routes versions. It was the killing game route I beat last night, and it was like a satisfying ending that like I could have stopped there in theory, although then I wouldn't uncover all of the different mysteries that have popped up along the way, and so I wouldn't have the entire like satisfying experience. But it was a pretty good ending. Like, it felt like a complete story. So it's really just telling the story of these characters in like a bazillion different ways, and I'm very curious to see how it all comes together. It's pretty wild.
It's cool to hear about a game experimenting with repetition. I mean, this is like what I was writing about with Blueprints, and what we've found time and again, something that's true of Nier Automata. Video games are very suited to repetition, and the games that really lean into it and experiment with how you can repeat a story and play through it multiple times and change it and watch how it changes and grow to appreciate new things about it each time through. That is like a really cool thing that this kind of game does that another, like a linear Mass Effect or whatever role-playing game, like doesn't really do the same thing. And that's not always a bad thing, but it is very cool when games lean into it since it's so uniquely suited to video games.
Yeah, and Uchikashi's games have always been doing that and playing around with that form since the 999 and Zero, and there's always just kind of like these weird hints, and like it's always a fun moment in one of those games where you see something crack and it's like, wait a minute, I remember this from another timeline or something like that. That's always very, very enjoyable.
Yeah. It like displays an understanding of the form, I guess. Like these game directors who really understand this kind, like, and approach games that way, seem to understand that element of video games in a way that is very cool.
Which I love. And I think one of the keys to making it work is to make sure it doesn't feel repetitive, even as you are repeating yourself, which I think this game is pretty good at by letting you skip the combat stuff that you've already done before.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's really cool.
That sounds neat.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm curious if you guys play it. Let me know if you feel compelled. Because
I would like to. I mean, it's tough that all these games came out at the same time.
Yeah,
all
it's
three
just a time
colon
thing.
games that we're talking about.
Well, Oblivion kind of stomped on everything when it just got shadow dropped in the middle of. I wonder. I've been thinking a little bit about the kind of the ethical quandaries there. If you're like this big game developer, do you have like? Is it unethical for you to just like stomp on like potential indie games that are just trying to?
But aren't you going to do that every
capitalism,
week?
baby. Stomp on everybody. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Make all the money. Nom, nom, nom. Feed it to
Well,
me.
Maddy, in this case, like it's something you can't plan for because it just comes out of nowhere. Whereas like when GTA's release date gets announced, everybody in the world is going to be planning around that.
Right. So the shadow drop.
The shadow drop.
Yeah,
That's
shadow
the
drop
part
is
that
different.
a
It's a different
little
beast
like
entirely.
I wonder about
You're
the
right.
ethics of that. Not that I would say it's unethical to like release your game when you want to release it, but like it feels a little, I don't know, something to unpack
Right.
there.
What does anybody who worked on it think about that, or did they have any feelings about it? I wonder.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break and we'll be back with one more thing.
If you like too many podcasts, you'll love Soundheap with John Luke Roberts. It's got clips from all your favourite podcasts, such as Diary of a Tiny CEO.
Leonard Sprague, tell me how you make your money.
I go to the beach and I steal people's towels.
Remember Armour.
Do you remember the trend of everyone whacking themselves on the head with hammers and mallets when they wanted to lose weight?
And Elty John's Lobberly Songs.
I'm here today with Kiki D. Hello, Kiki D.
Hello, Elton.
There's dozens of episodes to catch up on, and brand new episodes going out right now. So, if you want far, far, far too many podcasts, then look for Soundheap on Maximum Fun. Boop boop.
All right, we're over 70 episodes into our show. Let's learn everything. So let's do a quick progress check. Have we learnt about quantum physics?
Yes, episode 59.
We haven't learned about the history of gossip yet, have we?
Yes, we have. Same episode, actually.
Have we talked to Tom Scott about his love of roller coasters?
Episode 64.
So how close are we to learning everything?
Bad news. We still haven't learned everything yet.
We're ruined!
No, it's good news as well. There is still a lot to learn. Woo! I'm Dr. Ella Hubber.
I'm regular Tom Lum.
I'm Caroline Roper, and on Let's Learn Everything, we learn about science and a bit of everything else too.
And although we haven't learned everything yet, I've got a pretty good feeling about this next episode.
Join us every other Thursday on Maximum Fun.
And we are back. We got 3 TV shows that we're
sure
going to talk about.
Yeah, we do.
Kirk, why don't you start us off?
All right. So My One More Thing is a Netflix show, a very buzzy Netflix show from a little while back called Adolescence that I watched over the weekend. That is one of the most remarkable TV shows I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
Which is
Wow.
not actually, now that I've been reading and sort of obsessively reading and listening to podcasts about it, not at all an uncommon sentiment. It is truly remarkable. It is unbelievable. Really, really amazing. Fairly gutting, incredibly intense.
Strong words.
Overwhelming, emotionally devastating. It's a lot of things. And I will describe it to you. This is not really a show that is spoilable. It is not that kind of a show. So I'm just going to kind of explain what it's about. This is a 4-episode miniseries. It's a British production that is on Netflix. It's co-written by Stephen Graham and Jack Thorne, who are both interesting. Stephen Graham, an actor, he played Al Capone in Boardwalk Empire. That's where I know him from. He's in the Matilda movie. He's in other stuff as well. He's a great actor, kind of plays tough guys. He plays the father in this and is an incredible performance. And then Jack Thorne was the writer. Jack Thorne wrote, I believe, was the writer of the Harry Potter play that was on... I guess it was on Broadway and it was in the West End. And he also developed the His Dark Materials TV show for the BBC and HBO, which was really good. He's a great writer. So the two of them created this show. This is a show about it begins with a young boy. He's 13 years old and he is arrested in a very shocking police raid on his house for the murder of a girl in his school. And it begins with that. And then the show is not actually a murder mystery. It's not really about whether he did or didn't do it. He is accused, and it seems fairly clear that there is a lot of evidence that he did it. And it's much more of this exploration of why. Why did this happen? And Stephen Graham gave a great interview on Fresh Air. I'll link to a couple of things in the show notes for anyone who's watched this, since I'm sure a lot of our listeners have, since this was so talked about. There are some really great interviews, and Stephen Graham's interview is really good. And he said he had seen this on the news a couple of times, stories of young boys killing young girls, in school in England. And it really disturbed him. And he was like, there's something going on here. I want to make a show about it. So in the end, this is a show about that murder and why that might happen. And so as a result, it's a show that's about so much. It's about parenting. It's about trying to help your children in the world today. It's about the internet. It's certainly about the manosphere and the way that radicalization can work. But it's never it's never like telling you how things work or what people should be doing. Dana Stevens, Slate's film critic, described it as very elliptical, which I think is a really good way to describe it. It's only 4 episodes, and it never shows you the whole picture. It just shows you these incredibly gripping, true moments in time throughout this horrible, tragic event that happened. And the really striking thing about this show, and the thing that will grab any viewer within the first 10 minutes, is that each episode is shot as a oneer. So they rehearsed for 2 weeks and then spent a week shooting each episode. So every episode is 1 hour long, and the whole thing is one take, and there's no cheating. They really did it. And it's crazy. The experience of watching it is unlike anything I've ever seen before. The beginning sequence with the police raid, it isn't just that we begin with cops talking in the car and then suddenly the camera pulls out and you see them pulling up to the house and it follows the raid inside as they arrest this kid, and it's really upsetting and shocking. Then the camera stays with them and it goes into the van where they have the kid and they're talking to him and they're explaining, this is your social worker. He's going to need to be with you for each of these conversations. And it becomes this, you realize as you're watching that it's becoming this procedural that isn't like any procedural ever, because you're actually going through the entire procedure of the first hour of booking a minor on murder charges, which involves so much stuff, really upsetting things and really just sort of mundane bureaucratic steps. There's a lot of waiting. There's so much tension. His parents don't know what's going on. And that's the first hour.
Does it feel realistic yet also not boring? Because I feel like
it's not boring and it's incredibly realistic.
Okay,
it's the most gripping. It's the most gripping thing I've seen in so long. I could not stop watching.
I mean, it's a testament to their talent that they were able to make
Unbelievable.
something like that not boring.
It's the opposite of boring.
Yeah, wow.
It's the most common thing I've heard, especially from friends I've talked to, is most people start it and then they just watch the entire thing without because they didn't realize what they were getting into. The second episode jumps a few days later and takes place at the school, and it's the same 2 police officers are walking around and talking to students, but then the camera will go free of them and follow a student for a while or follow a teacher, and the whole thing is choreographed around this school. It's I don't know. The production of it is just crazy. By the end, there's a foot chase at one point. The camera goes out the window and follows this kid who's running. They run across the street into traffic. Then the camera goes into the air. It's doing drone, it's flying over everything. So the production is crazy, but then the performances and the writing are really what makes it so special, because the third episode is basically just a two-hander. It's the kid and a child psychologist. So the kid, Jamie, who is accused of the murder, he's played by an actor named Owen Cooper, who has never been in anything before. And it's one of the most incredible performances I've seen. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe how incredible this kid is. He's with Erin Doherty, who's a well-known British actress. She's playing the child psychologist. And it's an hour of them in a room. And it's I can't even find words for it. Anyone who's seen it will understand why. His performance is so believable, and it's just, you can tell what he's not saying and what he is saying. The ways that he's trying to manipulate her at times into saying things that he wants her to hear. There's so much truth. It feels so believable. The way that he's struggling with his own self-image, the sort of dysmorphia I think that a lot of young boys feel about being unattractive, all that manosphere, looks maxing stuff where he's I'm ugly, and he's obviously not, and he wants her to tell him that he's not, but she won't because that's not really what the mode that she's in. And then he becomes angry, and he's so scary when he gets angry, and then he's a little kid again, and you're it's really disorienting and upsetting and amazing. I mean, it's I don't know. It's very hard to find words for it.
I mean, it sounds unpleasant to watch. I don't know if I want to watch something like this.
It sounds like a play in a good way.
Yes.
Which makes me wonder if the kid did theater. I mean, maybe this truly is his first role ever, but a lot of what you're describing is what you have to do when you're in a play, which is very difficult, to be clear.
Yeah, Stephen Graham talks about how they treated it as though they were doing a play. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether this actor, Owen Cooper, had done any stage productions. Either way, there is a different kind of performance. The camera is moving through the room. There is a lot of blocking. There's choreography. Things are happening that are really elaborate technically and allow for a kind of intimacy that isn't allowed on the stage. But yes, it does feel like a play. The final episode anyways is just the family, which is also fascinating. And again, to get at Dana Stevens' elliptical thing, it's just his family. It's the family of the accused, of the killer. And it's showing it's them trying to grapple with how this could have happened and what their lives are going to be now and how they can accept that their son did this or maybe did this and, probably did this. And just, man, the performances there, again, are just incredible. Like, and the amount of truth, like, it feels so believable. Anyways, I could go on and on and on. It was really not what I was expecting. I knew it was buzzy, but when I started it, like, it just destroyed me. Like, and to your point, Jason, like, yeah, it's not like a fun time, but also it feels really important and really just, I haven't seen anything like it in so long. Like, that felt this vital and this true, this interested in really looking at the truth of these kinds of situations without preaching to me about this solution or that solution or over-explaining things or spending too long doing any one thing. It just opens this door into this reality for you and then just shows it to you so powerfully. And I really, to that, I just I don't even know what else to say about it.
And now for a little bit of a contrast, Maddy.
I was supposed to
I should have gone
this.
last.
Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
Oh, well, Jason and I are watching different television shows that aren't that.
Maybe we'll play a little music. We can get everybody to relax, get back in the just
chill
the other
out.
part of the world. Yeah.
So there is at least one through line that I can paint here. So Dina and I watched The Pit, which is also a show that takes place in real time and is extremely stressful. Not in quite the way that Adolescence is, but it's stressful. It's set in an emergency room, and it's 15 episodes, and it's like a super long 15-hour shift. It starts at the very beginning of the shift and ends at overtime hours that those same characters are clocking in, because it's supposed to only be 12 hours, I believe. And then things go wrong, and it's good. It's really cool. And it was supposed to actually be an ER reboot, but the people making the show are, I believe, currently in a lawsuit with the Michael Crichton estate because they didn't actually manage to negotiate that. And they just kind of made the show anyway.
Fuck it. Noah Wiley's a different guy.
They cast Noah Wiley, who is famously played Dr. Carter on ER, and he's just kind of playing Dr. Carter again, but older and wiser now. And after watching The Pit, Dean and I were both just like, man, that really was cool. Like, what was ER like? A show that came out in 1994, so I was a child, didn't watch it, and really didn't know what the deal was, and we're really liking it. So obviously, it's got some real mid-90s politics. I feel like I need to warn people about this up top. Like, this may or may not be your vibe. The treatment of queer characters in particular, I would say, is upsetting at times. Like, this is peak AIDS epidemic. There's a lot of, episodes that I don't love on that score. So, you have to kind of go into the show knowing, okay, there's going to be some politics of the time. But I also think it's really impressive. It's impressively done, even though it is not, the same pace as The Pit, where The Pit tries to kind of mimic the idea of something happening in real time. It's not doing a oneer. It's not doing any of the things Kirk was describing, but it tries to feel like it's real time. ER instead does one shift per episode most of the time. That's usually the structure. And a lot of things happen in real time as well. And so it really keeps up the pace. And when I was a child hearing about ER, people always said it was a soap opera. And I think it's because the term medical drama didn't really exist as much back then. This was in a time before we had so many different kinds of procedural TV shows, including medical dramas as part of that.
It was a time before ER.
Describe it. Yeah, it was time before ER, and I think ER probably changed a lot of things. And I would describe it as not necessarily a soap opera. It's got some soapy bits in every episode. There's maybe 6 minutes of romances between the staff of the hospital or whatever you want to call that. That's in there. But most of it is kind of like The Pit, except in 1994 and 1995 and so on. I'm not sure we're going to watch the whole thing, but we're really digging it. So if you're like us and you watched The Pit and you kind of wanted to know where it started, you might get a kick out of this and the politics of the time. It's cool.
If you're going to stop watching, I do recommend finding the live episode that they did and just watching that one because it's really cool and it does feel a lot like The Pit.
That sounds very cool.
It was a big stunt, but it was really impressive.
See, I didn't even know they did that, but I could totally see how they would because there are a lot of scenes on ER where it's like a walk and talk, pre-West Wing, but it has a lot of that energy where they're just going from room to room. And they really lean all the way into that on The Pit in an impressive way.
And since it aired in prime time on NBC, it was much ballyhooed. It was we're doing a live episode and everyone tuned in to watch it. I even remember it even though I was pretty young.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, Jason, you're the most lighthearted of us all, right? We're ending on a high note.
My one more thing is a TV show called The Studio on Apple TV Plus that stars
Hell yeah.
Seth Rogen as a movie executive who runs the studio and must deal with all sorts of
The poor bastard.
all sorts of craziness, and he's also kind of a dick.
Yeah, true.
The studio, it's definitely lighthearted, but it's also very anxiety-inducing.
Is it?
Maddy,
Okay.
So I don't know if it's
Interesting.
like your
I thought it
description
was more
of
of
it
a
isn't
comedy,
quite.
but maybe it's not.
No, you're not. Well, I mean, kind of, but
It's funny.
it's
but
funny. It's definitely
yeah.
funny, but I wouldn't
Go
describe
ahead,
it
describe
as
the show.
Yeah, so it's kind of like it's like a comedy version of Uncut Gems in that you're
That's a very good
following
description.
you're following
Okay.
someone around as he's just a ball of anxiety all the time, like having to make horrible decisions. So the premise of the show is it's also delightful. I mean, I absolutely
Just
love
laughing, thinking about. Go ahead. Sorry, it's a funny show.
I keep turning to Amanda after every episode and be like, holy shit, like I can't believe this show is so good. I love this show so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's every episode, it's a procedural, so every episode tells a different story, but it starts off with this kind of ridiculous premise where the studio head is fired and Seth Rogen takes over her job, but this owner of the studio, the kind of real mogul who calls the shots, played by Bryan Cranston, comes in and gives him some edicts that he has to make happen in order to get that job. And one of those edicts is to make a movie based on the Kool-Aid Man. And
This sounds like a comedy to
everything,
me.
everything goes off the rails from there. Well, the premise is hilarious, but they take it very seriously because that's what they have to do.
That rules.
And every episode is very different. A lot of them are themed. So like there's one episode, the next episode is really remarkable. I mean, talk about what Kirk was talking about, one shots.
Yeah.
The next episode is called The Oneer, and it's all about the behind the scenes at this one shoot that they're supposed to be shooting this oneer, and the entire episode is shot like a oneer. And so it's very cool to watch and very hilarious to watch Seth Rogen just keep stepping on rakes over and over again as he tries to make this happen.
Brutal.
Seth Rogen, he's played as this guy who like really loves cinema and especially loves artsy cinema and really cares about movies in this deep, passionate way. But also is just kind of a clueless studio executive who is just bumbling and is always like screwing things up for the creatives, and people want to take advantage of him all the time. And it's just kind of a mess. And there's some great stories and episodes in there. There's one that's kind of like a riff on Chinatown, where it's all about this movie set where like one of the film reels gets stolen, and it's parodies any like noir films to a T, and it's pretty great. Seth Rogen winds up in like wearing a trench coat and like a fedora because he showed up and said that it was too cold, and so he had to borrow one of the uniforms from the actual set itself. He winds up in
costume again, in wardrobe again. Oh, that's really
he's
funny.
always putting on costumes. Yeah, it's just so much fun to watch, but also just you're kind of on the edge of your seat the whole time because what's he gonna screw up this time?
Like I watched that Oneer episode like through my fingers.
Oh my god!
the whole second
But it's so
episode.
much fun. It's like I would describe it as like a cross between Uncut Gems and Curb Your Enthusiasm because it's got a lot of both of those to
And
it.
a little BoJack. It's got a little of that BoJack Hollywood satire.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, it's got some satirical stuff for sure. I mean, the concept of like, oh, now we're making Kool-Aid, so you better.
Barbie worked, so we want Kool-Aid.
Exactly.
Yeah, that
Kind of like the
Feels a
what
little
time is it
too
right now.com. And yeah, it's exceptional. I loved it. I highly recommend it to everybody. I'm like, it's the rare show. There hasn't been a show in ages where I'm just like waiting every week for the new episode to come out and like excited to watch it as it happens, as opposed to like waiting to marathon it all. So yeah, really enjoying it. Really, really love it. And it's even the credits are like set up like an old timey film reel. It's really cool. There's just a lot of it that is just like very much an appreciation for film, but it's also just kind of a satire of the modern film industry and how self-serious. There's the most recent episode, fantastic episode, but it's all about Seth Rogen going to this convention of doctors, and they all just kind of laugh at his job the entire time and how he thinks he's so important while they're saving lives, and it's very entertaining. Yeah, just a delightful show to watch. I'm just enjoying every second of it, and Seth Rogen is fantastic. Also, shout out to Ike Barinholtz, who is a very long-time character actor, underappreciated, who always kind of steals scenes whenever he's in anything. I remember him from like The League. He plays like one of the villainous characters, and he's always like a villain and stuff, like a douchey villain. He's very good at playing a douchey villain. And in this, he's Seth Rogen's best friend and fellow studio executive, who is just truly ridiculous, and
he's wonderful.
Steal scenes as always, but also Catherine Hahn is in it, and Catherine O'Hara plays a major role in some of the episodes as well. But just a great show. I love it. The Studio. Everyone should check it out.
I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, I've watched just a little bit, and it is the filmmaking craft on display is super wild. It is very funny to watch it and then have Adolescence come out and be like, "What is in the water right now?" Everyone is like making the most incredible looking stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah,
but yeah, it is definitely a love-hate letter to movies, which is it occupies a funny place for that reason.
It is a very funny place. It's clearly, I mean, it's like in the same way we love-hate video games. Like it's clearly we love them, but like there's so much to criticize.
I'm sure it's based in like semi-real experiences and like Succession.
Oh yeah,
there's probably
more than
like people
semi.
out there being like, this is too real and this is actually based on this real person.
Well, and the cameos are out of control too. Like there's a cameo in at least one in every episode.
Oh yeah, I mean Seth Rogen got his whole Rolodex of contacts for this, from like Martin Scorsese to Olivia Wilde to so many more.
Charlize Theron,
I love that.
And they are all just like making bit appearances. That's one of the reasons it reminds me of Curb, is because that sort of thing happens on Curb all the time too. All right, that is it for this week's episode. Hopefully we'll get some time to play some more Clair Obscur, and we can talk about it a little bit more next week. Perhaps we'll see. In the meantime, Kirk, Maddy, I'll see you both next week.
Yeah, see you both next week.
Bye.
Triple Click is produced by Jason Schreier, Maddy Myers, and me, Kirk Hamilton. I edit and mix the show and also wrote our theme music. Our show art is by Tom DJ. Some of the games and products we talked about on this episode may have been sent to us for free for review consideration. You can find a link to our ethics policy in the show notes. Triple Click is a proud member of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, and if you like our show, we hope you'll consider supporting us by becoming a member at MaximumFun.org/join. Find us on Twitter at TripleClickPod, send email to tripleclick@MaximumFun.org, and find a link to our Discord in the show notes. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Maximum Fun, a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows,
supported
directly
by you.